And so it's still the 17th of June 2021, and stopped here at another spot. This is about where Pretty Hollow Branch and Palmer Creek come together, up on the Palmer Creek Trail, as I said, as it was once known as Indian Creek by the old folks who lived here before the Park Service took over. And of course, all of that happened pretty much in the 1930s. This location is the Turkey George Palmer home place. And if you want to know why he was called Turkey George Palmer, as somebody said, it's because he wasn't Creek George Palmer, and he wasn't Big George Caldwell. He was Turkey George. Well, the story goes he about got flogged to death by a couple of turkeys in a pen one time, but that's another story. Turkey George had lived here in this area. Just above here, it's also known as Indian Flats. Now, the Cherokee never settled in this area. There were never any permanent Cherokee dwellings here that we know of. But they certainly camped here. It was a popular place for them to come hunt. And one of those encampments was just above here. Turkey George plowed up any number of arrowheads here and other artifacts that he had through the years. Turkey George Palmer was a great hunter, probably killed over 100 bears himself. And in his later years, he gave directions that he was to be buried in a steel casket. He said he didn't want those bears digging him up and taking vengeance on him after he had met his demise. So, when he died sometime in the early 1940s, he was buried in a steel casket above Palmer Chapel Methodist Church, right down the way here. This spot also is an area where the old settler Levi Caldwell, who came here probably around 1840 or so in those years, he was hunting. He had gotten a deer, had it over his shoulders. He had reloaded his muzzleloader rifle and had it in his arm, in the crook of his arm, as he was carrying the deer, when a hatchet, a tomahawk, whizzed past him, lodged in the tree beside him, and out of reflex, he wheeled, one-armed, fired his muzzleloading rifle and killed an Indian. Now, Levi was on very good terms with the Cherokee. He had learned to speak a good bit of their language, and they traded, and he was profoundly hurt emotionally that he had killed that Indian, not knowing anything about him. And he later was sick in the bed for a number of days after that, because Levi was a Christian with a sensitive heart and had never intended to kill anyone, even in self-defense. And it's said that some of the family, the descendants of Levi, still have that Indian's hatchet to this day. I don't know if that's true or not, but I have heard that. And then just above here, as you go on up Palmer Creek, or as it was known, Indian Creek, you'll eventually come to the fort with Lost Bottom Creek. And just a short distance above there is where two men camped back about 1921 or 22. And one of those men was the Reverend Wilson Campbell. He had been a World War I veteran who had gone over the top a number of times in battles in Europe and had survived all of that. But during the night, as they had come here on a fishing trip from Newport, Tennessee, they had camped out under a pretty good-sized ledge of a rock and had built a fire there. And sometime in the night, that rock fell directly on the Reverend Campbell. His companion was able to speak to him and talk to him for a while after that in the pitch dark. He couldn't do a thing for him. There was no way to move the rock. He had died by the next morning. The man went down below, and they turned out the Beech Grove School, and a number of other people came up, and it took a great number of them using some timber as leverage to pry that rock off the body of Reverend Campbell. And of course, they carried him back over to Tennessee. But that's another spot in the road here in Cataloochee. May God bless you.